Hey there, welcome. My name is Jessica Buchanan, and I'm a New York Times bestselling author, professional speaker, and founder of Soul Speak Press, a non traditional publishing company created for women who've been through something, now they know something, and they can teach us something. In Her Words is a podcast designed to support aspiring memoir authors on their writing and publishing journey. It's hard work, this writing and publishing stuff, and I want to empower you with encouragement and information so you can keep sharing your truth. So grab your coffee, your notebook, find a quiet space, and let's dive in. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Guess what? It's not just me that you're going to have to be subjected to listening to today. I am joined here by my friend and one of Soul Speak Press's anthology authors, Gillian Lichota. She's the executive director of the iRise Above Foundation, which is an organization that supports young women who are navigating breast cancer. She's also an anthology lead author. So typically, when I host conversations on here with anthology authors, it's authors who've been a part of Deserts to Mountaintops, which actually Gillian is one of those authors, as well as the lead author of the upcoming anthology for Rising Above Our Journey to Wholeness After Breast Cancer, that will be available October 23rd, 2025. We're super, super excited about the release of this book. Gillian, thank you so much for making the time in your busy schedule to come on and talk to us on In Her Words today.
Oh, you bet. I'm super happy to be here.
Thanks. So I thought we would start a little bit like going back. I feel like, I mean, it's been like what, a year and a half since we first met. We met through our mutual friend who's also a Soul Speak Press author. And we had lunch and we were talking about you pursuing perhaps writing a full-length memoir and then this idea of leading an anthology um like your own project with your own group of authors came up and you just went for it. And I'm curious as to like if you would share a little bit about your thought process behind that, and perhaps why you decided to start instead of writing a full-length memoir, why you decided to start moving in that direction within your own anthology.
Excellent question. Um, I suppose when I first stepped into the breast cancer space, it was 13 years ago. I was newly diagnosed with breast cancer at 34, and I didn't know anybody my age who had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was also newly pregnant. So, um, that for me was a real daunting experience. I went to support groups and felt like nothing really resonated for me. I was among women of all sorts of ages, and it became really evident to me that, we as young people are handed a story. I mean, whether it be breast cancer or the family you grow up in or some circumstance that is out of your control. And certainly breast cancer was something handed to me. Nobody wants to be in this club. However, when you are in this club, connection is a lifeline. And hearing other people's stories and understanding how they've navigated breast cancer, how it's opened them up, really can help with your own processing of your journey through, your walk through the experience. And so I founded the iRise Above Foundation based on my own needs. What did I need? I was lacking community, of a community of people who understood the unique challenges associated with being a young person navigating breast cancer. You're just discovering who you are. You're stepping into, some of us were stepping into motherhood, or you're reaching the height of your career. You're really kind of, moving into something, and it just turns your world upside down, and no one gives you a playbook for this. And um, so I thought to myself, well, I'm an expert in just my own experience, and there's so many women who have value added and in sharing their experiences. And as time has gone on for me in the last few years of running the I Rise Above Foundation, I hear my own stories in other women's stories, and it
Mhm.
makes me feel less isolated. It makes me feel more empowered. It
Yeah.
makes me feel more inspired. So
Mhm.
I had such an excellent experience being in the Desert to Mountaintops through Volume 3.
Mhm.
Um, it was a collection of women who were navigating, the pilgrimage of motherhood. I wrote about how breast cancer and motherhood collided and just really
Yeah.
pushed me open. And I really connected with so many of the other authors. And I thought to myself, wow, this would be an excellent way to bring together the voices within my community who've learned something and then they want to share something. They want to empower others. And so I thought, well, cancer gave all of us, handed us the story that none of us wanted, and we've learned something from it. And being able to take what story we've been handed and rewrite the ending,
Mhm.
rewrite what we want it to be, is a
Mhm.
super healing process. It's
Mhm.
so cathartic, and it's an opportunity for our community of co-authors to also connect
Mhm.
and just share what we've learned. So that's kind of how we landed on this.
Yeah, I love it so much. And as we're in October and there's a lot of language and conversation around breast cancer awareness right now, because October is the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I have personally loved being able to say, oh, get ready because we have this book coming out at the end of the month and it's, I mean, everybody has been touched by it somehow. They know someone, they love someone who's been touched by breast cancer. Um, Tell me a little bit about the title and why you chose the subtitle, Our Journey to Wholeness. What
Mm.
does that mean in like why did you decide to settle on that as a tagline or as a subtitle?
Uh, because I think it's important to to share with other women within the community that it's not okay. I mean, it's totally okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay to experience joy and grief in the same light.
Hmm.
Um, and that to me is really part of life, right? It's the
Hmm.
lessons you learn that you can, be overjoyed with something and be super sad about something else. And I think that um, all of the stories within this anthology, this particular anthology, really touch on that about being able to hold two things at the same
Yeah.
time and um, and in the process of doing so, feel whole. They don't feel
Yeah.
broken anymore.
Yeah.
So that's where the title, or sorry, the concept of kintsugi, which is
Hmm.
the Japanese uh, art of pottery, of mending broken pottery with gilded gold, comes in, and it creates something, more valuable and beautiful and shines more brightly than before because the light really comes through those cracks.
Hmm.
And so I just thought it really resonated for me and where we are today.
Yeah, I love that. And I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. What were some of the maybe highlights of leading a project like this? And then perhaps what were some of the challenges? Because here you are, you're an experienced author, and you're an experienced leader, but then putting those two together is, kind of daunting.
Mm.
So tell me, I'd love to hear more about your experience on that.
Well, I think that we as women are conditioned to be givers and to not give ourselves permission to serve ourselves first. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think one of the challenges um, in working, in the very beginning when speaking with a lot of the women was how they didn't feel like they owed themselves um, the permission or gave themselves permission to really get vulnerable, to
Hmm.
really put it out, or that to prioritize themselves first in writing this. It took a little
Yeah.
while um, for them to feel not so guilty about focusing on themselves. But I think if you ask any of them in the end, they're so grateful that they did it. They learned something about themselves and they feel lighter
Hmm.
and more, I guess, I guess they have a clearer vision for the future because they've been able to write some things on paper and articulate that. I know for myself, I'm always thinking about things, right? And I always
Same.
have I always have I always have thoughts like going on in my brain, and I like to think that I think about circumstances and experiences, but until I really put it down on paper and glue it together and read it and be able to revisit it,
Yeah.
I can't really make sense of it. So I think that was like the real bonus to all of this is seeing how women were able to do that and put their thoughts and feelings and their traumas on paper, give it somewhere else to live so that it can make space inside for other things that really
Yeah.
serve well-being. And I think everyone's really come out of this, being able to speak to that exactly.
I love that. I love that imagery of getting out the pain and
Mhm.
the trauma and putting it down, putting it somewhere else, right? It's such a sacred practice, ritual, mm, whatever word you want to use to make space for healing.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a really big tenet to all of the work that I've read that you've written. In you're very experienced in the space of like leading women in on these. You do your organization does these adventure trips where women can go and challenge themselves physically. How would you compare this kind of experience to something like that?
Yeah. Well, I think they're very aligned. I don't know. So when we at iRise Above, we offer restorative retreats and outdoor epic adventures, and they're built really around getting women outside of their comfort zone.
Hmm.
And I think that this this experience of anthology writing really did get many of them outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Um, and because it's really psychological. Like for example, I took a group of women to Utah and they had to rappel off of this 300-foot rock face, and there
Yikes.
was a lot going on there psychologically, right? Even though
Yes,
they had
yes.
all the, you know, and there was a few that swore at us. But they all did it and they
Uh-huh.
all overcame it, right? They all rose above the challenge.
Yeah.
And there were high fives at the bottom. They were, let's do it
Hmm.
again. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's I think when you come out of breast cancer, you don't want to return back to what was. It
No.
forever changes you.
Yeah.
And so it's all about like learning some of these new techniques of like, I faced cancer. I can do this other thing. And so we can do the hard things. We can.
Mhm.
And we have to believe in ourselves. And I always say like the hardest, most important, I say this to my kids all the time, the most important conversation that we have in life is one we have with ourselves. So,
Mhm.
you know, so I think it all starts psychologically, whether it's on an adventure trip and, we're summiting a mountain or it's writing.
Mhm.
It's having that conversation and being honest with yourself and listening to your intuition is super important. So I think those are kind of ways.
Yeah. So I always think like I compare writing a book and bringing it into the world sort of like childbirth because it can be really painful. And then this book baby has its own path, right? And so what are your dreams for this book? What path? I mean, essentially it will take on its own journey, but as we help guide it along, right? What are your hopes and dreams for this book in your community?
Yeah. So iRise Above has been uh, you know, developing partnerships with breast cancer treatment centers across North America because we really want to be able to bring the audiobook available to these women who are in treatment, active treatment at these, cancer treatment centers. I know when I was going through my own treatment at 34 and I was bald, I had and I had a giant pregnant belly, and it was very confusing and isolating and terrifying. I was really uncertain because at the time of original diagnosis, I was stage 3 advanced, and they couldn't even tell me if I was metastatic. So I felt very alone. And the idea behind this book and be able to bring it to women who are, newly diagnosed is that it's a beacon of light in the darkness. It's going to offer hope. It's going to let them know there's a community out there. They may see themselves in the writing of other women's stories, and there's an opportunity to reach out and connect. And I do think that when you have hope, the outcome can be much different than if it doesn't exist. And so that is what I hope for, is that
Yeah.
it offers hope and
Yeah.
support to those women. But also beyond that, I think it's important for caregivers to read
Mhm.
this as well, because there's a lot of
Mhm.
unspoken words. There's a lot of truth telling. There's a lot of sacred truth telling going on in this anthology that
Yeah.
might not have been spoken otherwise. And so I think it's really important that caregivers and family members, people who are within the understand you don't go back to normal. You don't
Yeah.
go back. You're not over it. It's always part of your life, it's always going to be part. So I guess it's bringing more awareness to how we can have a collective conversation about breast cancer, especially with young people, and how we can better support. And the other thing I like to say is that this book is not just for, women going through cancer or their caregivers or their immediate network. This is really for anybody who has gone through challenges in life, because the stories aren't necessarily about breast cancer. Breast cancer, for example, for me, ripped off a giant scab of festering trauma that
Yeah.
I really dig into, because I realized I needed to before I really was able to give what I wanted to give to my children, because I didn't want to pass those traumas. And so um yeah, I lost where I was going with that, but it was along those
No, it was all
lines
good.
there.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, it makes me think because I'm so intimately involved in the creation of this as well, working with the authors, and I'm thinking about, Melissa's chapter and how cancer really helped her move past her patterns of people pleasing. And, there are other stories that center around motherhood and a lot of fear that they had to overcome regarding, losing that relationship with their children because of cancer and becoming braver and stronger because of that. There are a lot of themes around growing closer to who they are as women in general, and also from a spiritual perspective. And there are all types of spirituality represented, which I think is really beautiful and lovely too. So I agree with you. It applies to every human who has had a human experience, because life is hard and we're all surviving something. And, this just happens to be focused on breast cancer, but it can be applied to anything. Um, so, what's next for you in terms of, I mean, there's the promotion of the book. I always say writing the book is 50% of the work of being an author. Then it's the other 50% is promoting it and letting people know it's out there. Um, are you going to keep writing? I always ask other, my authors that I interview, like, or are you like, I'm done?
I don't think I'll ever be done writing.
Love
I
that.
love it. It's
Yeah.
part of my practice. It's the way I unwind.
Yep.
I notice that I'm very tight if I don't.
Hmm.
Um, even if I just get a little bit in. So I will always write. Um, I am interested to see if this is received because I have some ideas on future volumes
Hmm.
that center around very different topics that I think are important to talk about and to share, get honest about.
Hmm.
Um, and the other thing is that what we've decided with iRise Above is that writing is going to become much more of a central focus of the healing process. So for
Hmm.
our writing, for our retreats, um, we're gonna dig down a little bit deeper than we have in the past. I have lots on that, and so it's encouraging women. I think
Yeah.
whether you're writing a book or you're working through, we just got finished, we're almost finished. We're in the fifth of the sixth week of offering a workshop, a writing workshop about transforming trauma. I think it's
Amazing.
really, yeah, I think it's been really well received, and I see the healing going on. I feel
Yeah.
it. It's palpable. And I'm part of that, and I heal too. It's not just,
Yeah.
for the people in my community. Like I am part of the community, so
Absolutely. I love that. Well, here I have my Bible right here. It's healing as writing as a way of healing, right? I like literally talk about it on every podcast episode lately because I'm just obsessed with this book because and just this truth, not the idea, but not even a concept, but the absolute truth that writing is such a powerful way to heal. And so we're just so honored to have gotten to facilitate that process for you and your 10 authors. And it's just been such a pleasure to work with all of you. If somebody's listening to this and they want to get a copy, of course, it's going to be available on Amazon or wherever you buy your books. But how can people learn more about I Rise Above and connect with you directly?
yeah. So I would recommend anyone out there to check out our website. It's the iriseabovefoundation.org. There's lots of resources there, and you can find a link to our YouTube channel that has tons of resources, as well as our Instagram. We're at iRise_above, and Facebook. And yeah, through the website, you can connect with me directly too.
Perfect.
And if you
Awesome.
buy the book, most of the chapters, the essays include where the bio is, information, how to connect with the authors.
Absolutely. And I would really encourage you, listeners out there, to reach out to them and chat with them about their experience, whether it's about their breast cancer journey or their writing journey, whatever it is, they want to connect with you. That's part of the reason for doing this is so that they can grow their community and be of service. Um, Well, Gillian, your book comes out tomorrow, and I'm just so excited for you and can't wait to watch the journey unfold as you continue to do this incredible work of making meaning out of such hardship. You're an inspiration to all of us, and we just really, really appreciate all you're putting back into the community.
Thank you for your love and support, Jen, all of, the amazing team at Soul Speak Press. I can't say enough. They're
Oh,
amazing.
well, we've loved it. It's been great. In Her Words is hosted by me, Jessica Buchanan, and is produced by Soul Speak Press, a non traditional publishing house for women who are ready to tell their story. If you would like to know more about our submission process, I encourage you to check us out at www.soulspeakpress.com or follow us over on Instagram at Soul Speak Press. We appreciate all your questions, and if you would like to leave us a review, we would be so grateful.